everybody. It's Andy from Snow Camps Europe, back again with Paul Simpson from the Ski Instructor Academy. It's been a long day. I've been skiing and everything today.
I know, we've done about 4 of these podcasts. Yeah. But before you start and go into part 2, you know, the one thing about winter and having all this snow dumping down continually here in Austria is everywhere has people clearing snow.
Yeah.
But of course they do it between 1 and 5 o'clock in the morning. Every morning, that guy's been scraping that bloody car park at like 1:33, and I sleep with the window open. So like, you can't like not avoid this like scratching away.
Our car park is 4 o'clock. He's there at 4, and I woke up this morning at 3:30, went to the toilet because I'm old, and then went, right, I've got half an hour. And then I'm awake again. And I was awake from 4 till it was time to get out of bed. And the thing is as well, the dog then hears the noise and thinks, oh, it's time to go up. So then once the tractor disappears, the dog starts to kick off. Yeah. So I then have to fight with the dog to try and stay in bed. But yeah, you're right. There has been a phenomenal amount of snow.
You can actually hear them outside now. Outside now. And all they do is drive up and down the street because there's so much snow they have to put it in the truck as well.
Take it to the river.
And then they dump it in the river.
Dump it in the river. It's bonkers. Somebody actually asked me once, why don't they dump it on the piste? And it's like, well, it's got grit in it and it wouldn't be too good for our skis. But yeah. So part 2. Following on from the one that you've hopefully just watched, everybody. We were covering off some comments and questions, and we were having a little bit of a chat about a few things, and we talked about people who had learned to snowblade who then probably needed to learn to ski because they wanted to buy some skis or relearn. Yeah, and then we were talking about poles and pole plants, and then John Coe had made a comment about we'd spoken in a previous podcast about how important side slipping was and how you can use it in so many different situations, but it doesn't get focused on enough as far as we're concerned as ski teachers. And he also came up with sidestepping, which I said to you off camera, yeah, I remember when I learned to ski, that was a skill that you learned, where now so many of these teaching areas have got these moving carpets. People don't learn to sidestep.
I know, it's like people don't learn to walk up stairs anymore.
No,
because there's elevators and escalators. But it's true. It's like you were subliminally or unconsciously practicing a skill when you were always having to sidestep before you could ski down your 10-meter slope. Yeah. You don't do that anymore because it's too tiring. Yeah. And all that movement of getting on the inside edge and stepping off it, it was always quite weird because one of the hardest things to do with a group of beginners when you don't have the magic carpet or a piece of carpet just to walk on even, was try to get them to just get 5 or 6 meters up a tiny little bank because it would just be sliding back down all the time.
There'd be people sliding backwards, there'd be people's bottom ski slipping away,
constantly,
there'd be people who just couldn't get any elevation.
Yeah. And they completely lose the knee rotation, the ability to, or the ankle as well, to get onto that inside edge, completely to stand off it.
Then if you think if you can get them walking up on their edge and you've done your first sort of learning to ski thing, so straight lining and head, shoulders, knees and toes and lifting skis up, where are you going to? You're going into a plough where you want them to be able to put the ski on the edge. You're going into a plough turn where they need to be able to feel the edge, and then moving on to plough parallels. So it so makes sense what Joe said, that sidestepping, I don't see any of us teaching it.
No,
you know?
No, and it comes down to the importance of it. I was teaching a group of level 3 ski instructors who I used skating with them as a drill to get into very high performance, dynamic, short carves turns. And that sequence of skating was, for a lot of them, was something that was so challenging for them to project themselves forward. And when I say we were skating, we started on like an easy blue, but we ended up skating down steep reds to actually initiate this dynamic carve turn. And they all learned so much. And I've had instructors come back to me. This was 8 or 9 years ago. I remember that particular lesson. And one's a trainer now for Ski Instructor Academy. He said, you know, I had such like a switch in my head about dynamic carving just from that skating drill. And he says, I tried to replicate that in my teaching all the time. So that's another skating. sidestepping, side slipping, 3 skills which actually, just like playing the piano and going up and down the scales, I would say it's something you should do constantly, all the time.
And then the other one I remember learning, and we learned to sidestep up to allow us to come down. We then learned to walk up in a herringbone. And that
adults nowadays can't do herringbone. It's like doing yoga on skis to them.
Yes,
You know?
but again, if you're learning herringboning and then you're going onto the flat and you're learning skating, obviously
similar,
it's almost a progression, isn't it?
For those that don't know, Andy's talking about basically stepping up like a duck uphill, so like opening your legs, in a reverse plough. And generally, it's frowned upon with adults at the beginning stage because they just can't do it unless they're very sporty and athletic. So you teach kids it to herringbow or to go up in this position like a duck. But with adults, it's almost nowadays, it's not done because they don't seem to be to put their limbs into that contorted position, if you like. But actually, as Andy says, it's very, if you had an ice skater or somebody, they would find it breeze.
Piece of cake.
And that's always been the case. If you ever get somebody who is an ice skater who then suddenly wants to learn to ski, they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're just awesome straight away.
I remember Duncan, Duncan Cameron. He had a guy, and this was when we worked for the ski school where beginners learn on, what were they, 120s?
Oh, the 120.
On 120 skis, so quite short skis. And he had a beginner lesson, a private, and the guy put these skis on, and Duncan went to go and do something, came back, and the guy was skating around Kinderland, like flying around, and it turned out he was an ice hockey player.
Yeah, right.
And he was just all over it. It was fantastic. So yeah, ice skaters onto skis.
Yes. So, leading on to those comments, Andy, you got any other comments on yours?
No, there was we did the pole plant one. There was one other.
Yeah,
but that was the main thing. It was just it kind of rung an alarm bell in my head about the sidestepping that Joe said. And
I think if you haven't done it, if it's something you're listening in from, let's face it, we all want to basically ski right to the lift, don't we? We don't want to stop 25 meters before it and have to skate in or sidestep up a little bank. It's just laziness, it's what we are. It's why we park the car right next to the shop in the disabled bay. I don't do that. I get accused of parking my car in the other town. People go, why are you parking in Zellamsey to go shopping in Caprun?
I'm the furthest away from the door because I know that 80% of cosmetic car damage is created by other car owners opening the doors at supermarket car parks. So I park the furthest away, and I'll try and find a space that's only got one side to it.
This makes Andy's day.
Does.
Yeah.
Also, it gives me a longer walk to and from the shop.
Exactly that. So staying fit and healthy, which brings me on to the myriad of huge string of comments we've had on Be the Best Skier You Can, Part 1. And, of course, now Part 2 is up as well. And I know even Andy watched Part 2 right the way through.
I watched Part 2 all the way through yesterday. And I have to admit, I only watched about 15 or 12 minutes of the first one because I got sidetracked with something else.
Yes.
But I found the second part very interesting. And I was saying to Paul off camera, the way he broke it down, if you've not seen it yet, go and see it. And we'll put a link up here somewhere. Go and have a look at it because the way he's broken down what he's talking about is very digestible.
Yeah. And his usual, his usual double thinks, obviously, been watching it.
He's a regular.
He's a regular. He's put his point of view across about muscle memory. What would be the best way to counter that? Oh, I'm going to have to tackle that one. That'll be a good one.
Well, hang on a minute. Actually. Muscle memory. No such thing, eh?
Yeah, well. Yes, we will tackle that actually in a separate conversation.
Is it not neurological pathways to the brain?
Yeah, well, maybe we'll tackle that in a separate podcast because that could be a good one.
Sounds like I know what I'm on about, but I'm just kind of
echoing.
Yeah,
echoing.
But I'm a big. I have quite. Yeah, We'll talk about it another time.
I was going to say, finish that sentence off. But let's look at part 1. The part 1 was generally the idea was to introduce you to a bit of a concept of what fitness is, how it can affect you within your daily life. It wasn't just about skiing. I mean, we're all heading in the same direction, and that's towards death, decrepitude. Yeah, and to try and slow down that process is important. And I know a lot of people who I deal with are in their 50s, 60s and 70s, and obviously that they're looking to try and, slow down that journey. They want to make sure that they're as active as they can be, maximizing their potential. And I know a lot of people, who try to get better at skiing through skiing. My perspective of that, coming from a different background, is you cannot do that. As you get older, you're going to need some supplements to help you. And I'm on about the food type. I'm on about whether it be mobility, stability and stretching, whether it be some sort of strength training. And these 3 video parts that I'm putting up are going through the why and the proof and the science behind it. But more importantly, when I post up part 3, it'll give you an opportunity to actually measure your own mobility to see if it's affecting your skiing. And it's surprising. Even something as stupid as your ability to put your arms over your head can have an effect on your ability to turn in one direction. So we're starting to get into, yes, it is a bit of mechanics and stuff, but it's simple, isn't it? I mean,
as I said off camera, the way you presented the second part, because I've not watched the first part, it was really digestible. It was really good the way you broke it down. And what Paul's talking about is it's a lot about, you need a multitude of training to become a much better skier. So you can't just concentrate on riding a bike or aerobic activity, or you just can't concentrate on only agility. You've got to have a mix to enable you to perform on the snow. And it's funny because I always used to say to my ex-father-in-law, Jimmy, and this was before I was coming over 10 years ago to re-qualify with you guys, and he said, Andy, how are you going to get your skiing to the next level? And I said, I've got to get fitter. I can only do it by becoming fitter and all-round fitness. And I did do that before I came over 10 years ago, and I kind of maintained it for quite some years until I smashed my knee up. And then I had 18 months of rehab, and then since then, I'm probably now at the least fittest and have a crap physique compared to where I was. Which unfortunately due to lockdown hasn't helped because the gyms keep closing. I went back to the gym a few weeks ago for 4 sessions, only closed again.
Which is interesting because it brings me to a point as well. Obviously, having such large groups with Ski Instructor Academy, let's say on average you might tackle up to 500 students in a year in ski instructor exams. Now, this year, I saw in the first 2.5, let's say 15 training days, Andy, and you skied with some of them, we saw 6 ACL ruptures. Now, when I looked back on the insurance and claims and stuff like that over the last 6 years, we've had 1 ACL rupture in 6 years. Yep. And yet this year we had 6 in the space of 15 days. And I wouldn't say that the conditions were not like that challenging, were they? I mean, they were icy, they were a bit tough at times until it started to snow. But I think in a lot of it, by the way, as well, I just say it was females, which I'm seeing a lot of, and I could go into the mechanics of why this is. You see a lot of this in tennis players, female football players, that this needs to be addressed at the international level. But we saw ACL ruptures, and that's a sign to me as well that maybe there was a lot of inactivity.
Yep, people sat around during the lockdowns. Yeah, but you that would be one of the first things you would assume, isn't it? Yeah. It could be other things, but you would, given the amount of inactivity a lot of people have had because of the lockdowns, then you would think that has played a part for sure. Could have also been a binding malfunction. But did they all have the same bindings? Yeah, could have been. I'd say the conditions weren't that challenging over those 2 weeks. Yeah, we didn't have a great deal of fresh snow. There was a bit of ice about. It got bumpy in the afternoons, but it wasn't crazy bad.
No. Well, anyway, let's go back to the comments. And so Chris Mann was talking about top 4 ski mistakes video. So he points out quite an obvious thing to us, I suppose, in himself is, he finds one of the hardest things about skiing is this balance awareness on the skis. And then, he goes on to say that what he tends to find is he suffers from total technique breakdown on terrain that's, particularly difficult. And he wonders if that's just himself or whether other people find that. Yeah, I think basically whether people admit it or they don't, I mean, this is probably from a psychological point of view as well. We get people who hurtle down black runs, but they literally are in, the most horrendous positions on their skis as well. Their technique breakdowns there. But I think people like yourself recognise your technique breakdown, and anything that's moguls, crud, steep terrain, narrow terrain, busy terrain, bumpy to the sides, whatever. People break down in their technique, and it's the first clue to the fact that actually you probably haven't mastered the fundamentals of skiing. And this is where we all end up skipping the fundamentals because we seek the easy terrain. We seek the nice corduroy in the morning. We seek the best, easiest lines, etc.
Yeah, I think also, and what's his name?
Chris Mann.
Chris Mann. And I don't know you, Chris, and this is just me guessing, and I'm guessing that you learnt to ski, you got quite competent, and then you stopped learning to ski. And then when it gets steeper or choppier or cruddy or bumpier, then that's when it goes. And it's potentially because you've not continued learning and you've not learnt the skills that are needed in that terrain or at that steepness. But as Paul said, yeah, it happens to everybody at some point. But I would think, I'm guessing, but I would think that it's because you've not been taken onto a steep pitch and been told how to get down it, how best to ski it, and whether you have them skills to go onto that pitch already.
I think that's the issue, Andy. I think you need to go back with people like that. I think that the problem is when they find that they're challenged on difficult terrain, it's just a signal that this is the problem, that it is easy to go down a blue, a red, a black piece that's, nicely groomed and stuff like that, and it's the snow's grippy. The challenge is putting yourself onto terrain that's, more challenging. Yep. But before you do that, you need to ski the simpler stuff like it's the challenging stuff. And it comes back down to exaggeration again. So, for example, if you look at that video, Chris, where I was talking about the exaggeration of movement, if you actually went away and practiced that in conditions where you don't need that much movement, and this is the problem why people go, why the hell are you doing that? But if you practice that, you're going to need that much movement if you get trapped into some slushy or sugary snow, or it's some sort of bumpy terrain, it's anything like that. That movement's going to help you, because this is the same situation when I'm teaching, let's say, in strength and conditioning. And I look at somebody, I think, hang on a second, they have a limited range of movement within their hip. Now, that amount of movement they have, let's say, is enough to make a deep squat, with weight on their back or whatever. So somebody might say, oh, well, that's fine. They've got enough range of movement. But hang on, they have now no forgiveness. They're at the maximum point when they're making that deep squat with that joint. What I need to do is say, hang on, what happens if something moved, something shifted, the weight shifted on your back or something, and you had to suddenly adjust into a deeper position? You can't. Bang, something pops, something goes injured, so you're injured. Skiing's the same. If you're skiing on a terrain and you're just making the absolute minimum, like you said about the guy in the snowblades, the minimum movement to make that ski turn, then your body's going to get used to that. And what you have to do is get your body sometimes, just not all runs of the day, but say, hang on, 2 or 3 runs, I'm going to make myself work ridiculously. I'm going to make myself move and work much more than I normally would. But you're getting some ingrained muscle memory, as we said before,
I was waiting for it.
to say, right, I do have that confidence that if I hit that big bump in front of me, I can absorb that because I know I can get my backside down to the back binding if I need to. And this is the thing, like, people are skiing too comfortably. Yeah,
and it does happen to all of us. I've had it where I've skied one day on the piste and it's been fantastic conditions. Then it's dumped a serious amount of powder, and we go up, rightly or wrongly, don't do a warm-up, go straight into the powder, and I'm like, I can't turn my skis. Because what am I doing? I'm doing what I did last, which was I'm trying to ski the deep powder like I was skiing yesterday on the perfect piste with a different pair of skis on. Yeah. And it takes me half of that run to go, right, Rose, sort it out. Start bloody moving. Start using your bit of body tension, drive the legs, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're powering through the powder again. But and this goes on to something we were talking about earlier about setting yourself up at the beginning of each run for it to be successful. Now, if I've gone into the powder and I'm struggling, I've not done exactly what we were talking about earlier, which was, okay, what am I about to do? Get myself in a good position, think about what I'm going to do in my head, visualize what I'm about to do, now go and ski it. And if I was to have done that on that powder day that I'm talking about, my first, second and third turn wouldn't have been like they were, where I was like, whoa, I can't turn. Whoa, I'm in the back seat. Whoa, I'm going to fall over.
It'd be like what you call Usain Bolt or something, you know, like everybody's in the starting blocks in the lanes and Usain's just standing there like with his legs crossed and bang! Okay, let's run. You know, everybody preps themselves. You can see them in the starting blocks getting ready to run that 100 meters. In skiing, it's the same. It's so important, especially if you're a tall guy, a lazy type of skier, that you snap yourself, get yourself ready, switch yourself on, lower yourself. Lower your centre of mass from where it is. Get it closer to the binding to set off with. So when that first turn hits you, it's not a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, but if you think about a golfer, when a golfer's about to tee off, he doesn't just walk up to the ball on the tee and go bang, does he? He does some practice swings. He then gets into his position. He then gets his club in the right place, and then he strikes the ball. Dorothy, when she wanted to go home, she would click her heels. Yeah. You know, as you said, sprinters. You see sprinters. If you watch a sprinter over and over again, the way they put their foot into the block, then the next one, the way they position their hands, the way they kick their leg back, they'll do it in a particular order every time. And a good one is David Beckham. When David Beckham took free kicks, he had a ritual of how he would place the ball, walk back from the ball, step to the side of the ball, and then take the free kick. And that becomes ingrained in them. Because we only go skiing as a tourist maybe once or twice a year, it doesn't. So you have to actively think about what you're going to do and get yourself ready.
And it's probably weird for many recreational skiers to think like that. To think, I'm on holiday, man. Shut the... Like, you know what I mean? I'm just going to go down that hill. But then you all question it, why it's not working. Well, yeah, because it's a sport. It's like, it's not quite, you know, lying on the beach and putting your towel down. So I think that people definitely need to be that little bit more switched onto it, you know. What else we got? Fishbowl here. So Benzinese, $2, please. Yeah, we'll send you your $2 in the post for your feedback.
I watched a video. I watched a video a couple of days ago where a teacher did say bend the knees, and I was like, really? I was like, are we back in the 70s?
Well, in fairness, there's a context. It can be important, but in this context on this video, it wasn't. It wasn't the right thing to say, and that comes back to me doing a video about cueing, bad cueing, good cueing, and I think it's something I need to tackle. Thanks for posting. Love ski. Inclination, angulation, separation. The difference is really important. Great to stress what happens instead of this static magic. Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, we talked about inclination and angulation. I explained to you when you angulate what the difference was. And yeah, there's a lot of positive posts there. You know, not too much abuse. I'm getting less abuse, Andy. I must, you know, have
less and less abuse.
There's not so many people shouting. It isn't calling us crap.
Do keep the comment and the questions coming, because the questions give us material to then come back to you with other podcasts. So please do keep commenting and asking questions.
Yeah, we posted up a little video today, which was 2 minutes or a minute and a half of the Kitzsteinhorn from the drone shots, and the Kitzsteinhorn's actually borrowed the post as well, but it's just a nice little what we would call a B-roll. It's cinematic video of the Kitzsteinhorn, which is nice. But I will post up part 3 as well, or it's probably already up by the time this video's done, because this is about our 3rd podcast. So, and we'll have to have our Christmas special as well, which will probably be next after this
Christmas special. I'll get my Santa outfit out.
Yeah, cook marshmallows. Good stuff.
The marshmallows on the fire. Good idea.
I think we're about done, Andy. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, stop it.
Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share it with your friends. See you next time.
Bye for now.